Now you see footage coming out of actually rolling out the red carpet for Capitol Police allowing
Ramaswamy,
people in,
again,
right through the front door. I said 3 of them were acquitted on grounds of entrapment. That's a fact. Dispute me. Was I wrong about that? So no, I don't think we have to be that nation in decline. And tell the people in your class the same thing. We can still be a nation in our ascent.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we are going to be looking at Vivek Ramaswamy's recent appearance on CNN Town Hall. Now, this one is very entertaining because he takes the opportunity to say the naughtiest things that he can possibly say. And when the presenter tries to fact check him and interrupt, he manages to sort of hold her hand through the process of saying the naughty things. So we'll start from one of the audience members' questions, which is actually quite a good question and segues nicely into the debate.
I have here Riley Miller. He's a law student at Drake University and a clerk in the Marion County Attorney's Office. He's a Republican who is currently undecided. Riley?
Thank you. On the debate stage, you have somewhat abandoned the tact and diplomacy that I would look for in a president. I'm all for keeping it real and dogging the establishment, but there's a gravitas that I look for in those who represent our country. How do you see the balance between keeping it, being authentic, and maintaining that presidential demeanor?
I appreciate the question. I think it's very candid. This is what I love about Iowa. I get tougher questions from you guys than I do from the media. That's good. It's why we're here. So I appreciate that. Look, here's the standard I use for holding myself to or holding any president to. I want us to be able to look our kids in the eye and tell them that I want you to grow up and be like him. It's been a long time since we've held our presidents to that standard. That's the standard I want you to hold me to. That's a high standard. Now, I think about that in judging the way that I comport myself in different areas. Am I going to tell my kids to go to school and be a bully? No, I'm not. But I'm going to tell them, if somebody bullies you or hits you, you're going to hit them back 10 times harder. And that's the way I'm going to lead this country. You have to be, as we say in our family, you have to be strong enough to protect your kindness. So if you watch those debates carefully, I don't engage in 4-letter words. I mean, there are other candidates who have called me dumb, scum, and worse that I'm not going to repeat here. I didn't go after them, but if they're going to come after me, I'm not going to be a president, whether it's Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin or anybody else, who's going to roll over. When I'm leading the United States, the same rule applies. If you hit us, we hit you back 10 times harder. But it's not for the sake of being a bully.
Okay, guys, I'm not saying that Rattlesnake TV is keeping Vivek Ramaswamy on his toes, but when I interviewed him, I did ask him about if he's tough enough.
We know you're smart enough, but do you think you're tough enough to really hold it with those guys?
And after this, he got very tough on the debate stage. And now you've got rhetoric like this. So I don't know, guys, what do you think? Is a kid from the hood in Melbourne quietly influencing US elections? Imagine that, hey? Now, I don't know about you, but me personally, I love the style of debate that we get from charismatic new age entrepreneurs. I firmly believe that the days of the flag and the children's swamp creatures are firmly over. And that's thanks to Donald Trump. And I'm all for it. And now on to the part where the presenter Abby tries to fact check Vivek. It doesn't go so well.
So let me ask you about something that you said at the debate last week. You used the phrase inside job to describe what happened on January 6th. The next day, Capitol rioter Alan Hostetter highlighted your comments at his sentencing. He is going to prison for 11 years. Hostetter threatened members of Congress. He brought a hatchet, knives, pepper spray, stun batons, tactical gear to the U.S. Capitol. Are you concerned that a convicted felon like that is now promoting your comments in court?
So here's my concern, Abby. And I want to tell you guys where I'm at. If you had told me, it's close to 3 years ago that January 6, 2021 happened. If you had told me 3 years ago, back when I was a biotech CEO, not steeped in this world, I was just consuming passive media, but was focused on my world of developing medicines. If you had told me that January 6th was in any way an inside job, the subject of government entrapment, I would have told you that was crazy talk. Fringe conspiracy theory nonsense. I can tell you now, having gone somewhat deep in this, it's not. I mean, the reality is this. We do have a government, first of all, we have to acknowledge, that has lied to us systematically over the last several years about the origin of COVID-19. About the Hunter Biden laptop that we were told was false by 51 CIA experts and otherwise before we now know that it was true. You can go straight down the list, the Trump-Russia disinformation, collusion hoax, all of it. Now we come to January 6th. The reality is we know that there were federal law enforcement agents in that field. We don't know how many. I think it's shameful. If I may finish just answering.
Well, let me
this is really important.
I'm going to go ahead and interrupt you here because
I know this, the establishment doesn't approve of this message. I know
that there were federal
we should be able to talk about this.
You're saying that there were federal agents.
This is important to talk about.
You are saying there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
Yep.
There is no evidence that there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
So why, before Congress, when pressed on what the number was, they didn't say there were none? They just couldn't say how many there were.
So you're saying that that you have not seen any evidence that there were, and so you
we've seen
assume
multiple
that there were.
informants suggesting that there were. We know people were FBI informants who were asked to
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this, and you can come back and question me?
Well, let me clarify.
I know this is very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify my question.
I know this is an uncomfortable issue for many people, but we have to do the truth here.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply, and I told you I was with you 3 years ago. I'm not there now.
Where is the evidence?
Yes.
Where is the evidence that the government had a plot?
Let's do this.
An inside job.
But no, I'm going to tell you what an inside job is, because I'm not
violence on January 6th.
I'm not going to let you put words in my mouth. I'm going to put my words in my mouth. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that.
Where is the evidence that the government was involved in planning or executing January 6th?
So I'm going to give you hard facts. And if I may, Abby, I know this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but we're going to go through this, and you can push back on it after that. And you can push back on that. And let's do this fairly. Why did they suppress footage of now what's been released, 200 hours of footage of shooting rubber bullets into that crowd, shooting tear gas into that crowd? You didn't see that before. You saw what the response was to that. Now you see footage coming out of actually rolling out the red carpet for Capitol Police allowing people in,
again,
right through the front door.
The vast majority of the footage
evidence should have been released before, Abby.
Mr. Ramaswamy, the vast majority of the footage shows.
So before we get into the rest, just have a listen to the way that the audience is reacting to this. It just goes to show that they, like so many others, are absolutely enthralled by the idea of a politician actually telling the truth. They can hardly believe that this is happening during a town hall, and they're applauding and giving heavy more signals. But the fact of the matter is that Vivek Ramaswamy is right about this. It's the government and the lamestream media that were cherry-picking the footage from Jan 6 and cherry-picking what they wanted to present to the public. They were trying to solidify the insurrection narrative, and they very conveniently kept all of the footage of people being escorted into the building, including the QAnon shaman, very quiet. And this has come to light since, with journalists such as Tucker and others exposing it. But if not for the people who were looking to uncover the truth, the media and government would have just kept colluding to manufacture their desired narrative. It's hard to find places that are going to tell you the truth these days, and this is why I stay informed with Ground News, a startup that puts tens of thousands of sources and articles in one place so that you can see who owns the source and where they sit in the political spectrum. It allows me to keep up with the major stories from around the world on a daily basis. Like this story that I found today using the blind spot feature. Israel flooding Hamas tunnel networks with seawater. We can see that it's being reported on the left and the center, but mainly on the right, with 135 articles in total on the subject. And then on the right of the page, you can check out the bias distribution chart, which is a visual representation of all the sources reporting on it and where they sit in the political spectrum. And then in the center of the page under the title, you have the bias insight feature, where you can click left, center, and right, which is a quick way to get information on how the left and right are reporting the same story, but with distinct differences in language. You can also check out their app, compare coverage, and stay informed on breaking news by subscribing through my link, www.ground.news/rattlesnake. That's www.ground.news/rattlesnake. This way, you can take advantage of their holiday sale by getting 40% off their Vantage subscription, which is what I use for all of the best features, such as the Bias Insights feature. And guys, when you subscribe to Ground News, you not only support me and the channel, you support an independent platform that are trying to make the news more transparent. So with that, let's get back to the video.
And my deeper
police
question
officers
is this.
being overrun
and I want to talk about one more
by
case.
violent
this is really important.
riders. That's
I'm going to give you some hard facts.
Of it shows.
So here's what entrapment
can't
is.
cherry pick.
I'm not cherry picking.
You
If I may finish, Abby. If I may finish, Abby. I'm not cherry picking.
Examples.
To the contrary. To the contrary.
You know who
cherry picked
examples.
You know who cherry picked? The government.
That is what happened.
The government cherry picked 12 hours of footage when there was 200 hours of footage. So cherry picking was the government, not me. Release the whole thing. And let me just finish one thing too, because this is super important as a topic.
So I
think this is a civil libertarian issue of our time. Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping. I want to be really clear on this, because it's the same issue in the same FBI, same even part of the FBI. 3 people who were in an alleged plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer were acquitted at the end of trial because it was entrapment. That is, government agents put them up to do something they otherwise wouldn't have done. They gave them credit cards with spending limits of up to $5,000, encouraged them to buy munitions, plan something they weren't otherwise willing to plan. So much so, and I want people at home to know this, especially CNN viewers to know this, is that one of the jurors went to those defendants and apologized afterwards, gave him a hug, apologized, seeing what the government had put a poor guy up to who had to go to some Mexican restaurant across the street to get hot water. These people were exploited with credit cards up to $5,000, FBI agents putting them up to a kidnapping plot that we were told was true but was entrapment. Same thing with the Capitol Police, people letting them in freely. Many of those people then being charged.
Ramaswamy, look,
the government cannot put you up to do something and then charge you for it.
Look,
That's wrong.
I don't want to have
to. Wrong to the left, to the right,
I don't want to
care.
have
It's wrong.
to. I don't want to have to interrupt you. I really don't. But I don't want you to mislead the audience here or at home.
I think they've been misled by the mainstream media.
14 people.
The mainstream media has misled them.
14 people were charged in that plot. A majority of them were convicted.
I said 3 of them were acquitted on grounds of entrapment. That's a fact. Dispute me. Was I wrong about that?
What folks need to understand.
Was I wrong about what I said?
What
I was
folks
not.
need to understand
3
is
people were
that
acquitted on grounds of entrapment.
9 were
a juror apologized.
9 were convicted.
Yeah, but the 3 who were put up should have never got to that stage of a trial.
Going back to the January 6th
That's unacceptable in the United States.
Look, I just want people to understand. 3 people were acquitted. 9 people were convicted in that.
Mr. Ramaswamy, I don't want to interrupt you, but I kind of have to because I work for CNN and they gave me these pieces of paper and they told me to read from them. And I'm not sure if the stuff that I'm saying actually refutes the stuff that you're saying, but I'm going to say it anyway and pretend that I'm fact checking you. Okay, now let's move on. There's something so satisfying about watching this happening at a CNN town hall because these presenters get so uncomfortable when guys like Vivek will come on and start telling truths and exposing narratives that their organization has been totally complicit with pushing over the last few years, like Russia collusion, like COVID, like Jan 6, like the Hunter Biden laptop story, and so much more. And that's why Vivek really has to take her hand and guide her through this process. And now let's watch the last part for no other reason than to just observe Vivek's public speaking and communication skills. See what you guys observe about tactics and the way he goes about speaking, and then I'll check in after with what I got.
Man, thank you. I love seeing you get fired up. So
thank you. Thank you. Good to see you, man. Yeah. I see you're a basketball player. I've been playing tennis with some Drake tennis players. They got some good players.
Oh, yeah. Some of my boys play there, so that's awesome. Yeah. The biggest question about your legitimacy as a candidate has been your age. You know, I was a 22-year-old college kid. I love the idea of having younger candidates in office, but how has this been a challenge for you?
Yeah, look, it's been a big challenge. I mean, frankly, most caucus goers are 3-4 times your age. Let's be real about that. And I want people like you to come out to the caucus, and we're going to college campuses for that reason. One of the things I want people to understand, what I see when I go to college campuses, is I think actually many Republican candidates are scared of facing off with your generation, actually. Some of them hit me for being on TikTok because it reaches you all. I think we should be reaching out to young voters. What I see isn't a base of young voters who's against our shared values. I see a lot of peers in your generation and our generation that are lost, hungry for direction, right? The left will prey on that vacuum with race, gender, sexuality, climate. I'm not going to blame them. I'm going to blame the Republican Party. We've gotten lazy just criticizing that vision without offering our own vision. Individual, family, nation, God. Yes, I said the G word.
Guys, if you like watching Vivek putting mainstream journalists up against the ropes, and if you like what I do on this channel, then please don't hesitate to chuck a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Back to the clips.
That beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate if we have the courage to actually stand for something. And so I believe that your generation, I believe that we're at a tipping point, and there's a reason. I've talked about Thomas Jefferson. He was 33 when he wrote the Declaration. He also invented the swivel chair while he was at it. Think about that founding spirit. We're the pioneers. We're the explorers in this country, the unafraid, the people who nobody and no government dares to stop. That's who we are as Americans. Our pursuit of excellence, that's what makes us American. And I think it's going to take somebody in your generation, somebody whose best days in life are still yet ahead, to see a country whose best days are still ahead of itself. And I hope that's the case for me. I don't take every day for granted. Every day we wake up is a new blessing, and I'll leave it at that. I don't take tomorrow for granted, but I hope my best days are still ahead of me. And I think as a leader, I reject this narrative that we have to be that nation in decline, that we have to be ancient Rome. What's your name again, sir? Joe. Joe, I think our nation, like you, is actually a little young. Going through our own version of adolescence. Figuring out who we're going to be when we grow up. And when you view it that way, it all makes sense again. To me, it does. You go through that identity crisis. You lose your way a little bit. I don't know about you, but I did some stupid things, right? But we're stronger for it when we get to our adulthood on the other side. So no, I don't think we have to be that nation in decline. And tell the people in your class the same thing. We can still be a nation in our ascent. If the people of the last 25 years got us to where we are, maybe we try something a little different. Somebody with fresh legs. Somebody maybe the age that our founding fathers were when they signed that declaration. And I think we live in a 1776 moment. Let's give that a try and see what happens. Thank you.
So Vivek uses a few very effective speaking skills, and he uses them regularly. He's a master of opening up the body language and using very slow and deliberate hand movements to show that he's in control. It hypnotizes the audience and lulls you into a sense of security. He also adds much gravitas to his points by using very intentional pauses and doubling down on his points, because sometimes points need to be doubled down on. Vivek is the absolute elite of the elite when it comes to communication. There's a lot to be learned from him. So guys, hope you enjoyed that one. If you want to find me, you can hit those links below. And if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, if you get value from that and think, hey, I actually don't mind this guy, would probably watch him again, hit that subscribe button if you'd like to watch another video right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.